So thank you very much for the blessing and the smudging. I want to thank the virtual participants for joining us today because they would not have heard the beginning part. So for the virtual participants, my name is Abisola Olani, the Research Services Coordinator at Making the Shift. I will begin with a land acknowledgement. I'm on my tiptoe, so sorry if I start bobbing up and down. I think I can actually move. Oh, I can just move it. Wow. It's like we conform to systems rather than like making the system work for us, eh? We'll begin with the land acknowledgement, and we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that the City of Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I want to remind all the participants that we'll be keeping the questions till the end, so please note them down. If you're at home, you can put them in the chat, in the Q&A box, and we will be addressing them at the end, and we'll be volleying between in-person and virtual, so don't feel like you're going to be left out. So we'll first be starting with Justin Sage Passant. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. He's an experienced family and individual therapist who has worked extensively with youth at risk of and experiencing homelessness and their families as manager of the prevention initiatives at Covenant House, Toronto. He leads the agency's Family and Natural Support, Youth Reconnect, and Shelter Diversion programs. So please let's thank Justin as he comes up to do his presentation.
Thank you, Abby, and thank you all for being here. It's a privilege to be here. Another cis, white, male speaking to people, so I do recognize my privilege, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Make the system work for you, right? Yeah. Okay. We're all learning. So, yes, I'm Justin. I use he, him pronouns. I manage the prevention programs at Covenant House here in Toronto. Covenant House, in its new strategic plan, has made prevention one of the 5 pillars, which is really exciting. So I'm going to speak a little bit about what that's looking like for us here in Toronto and here at Covenant House. I'll speak about the different prevention programs that we're operating. Some are brand new, some have been running for a little while. And then I want to share some of the successes, but also some of the challenges and the lessons we've learned as we've been implementing these new initiatives. So the first thing I want to talk about is why prevention, and why prevention is important to be talking about. So for us here in Toronto, our emergency shelter system is at capacity. Most nights shelters are full and people are being turned away. It's the same for us at Covenant House in the youth shelter system. Since 2018, the length of stay at the shelter has increased by almost 50%. So we've got more people coming into homelessness than are exiting homelessness. It's a problem. So there's a capacity issue, but more than that, we need to think about youth's outcomes. And youth have better outcomes when their experience of homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring. When young people have shorter stays in shelter, shorter experiences of homelessness, or are supported to maintain housing stably, then they have better outcomes. We know that when young people experience homelessness, they enter into the shelter system, they very often become disconnected from their school, their community, their support networks. The more disconnected a young person becomes from their community and their support network, the harder it is to exit homelessness. The longer someone's experiencing homelessness, the more likely they are to experience exploitation, sexual violence, mental health concerns, exposure to problematic substance use. The more a person is experiencing those things, the more likely they are to be disconnected from their community and their support networks, and I think you know where I'm going with this. So in prevention, we think it's important. I could have been a lot more brief there, couldn't I? I'm not sure the clicker's working. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. It's Dave, right? Adam, so sorry, Adam. Big thank you to Adam. We wouldn't be here without him. So what does prevention mean in the context of youth homelessness? It's a continuum. It's about primary prevention. It's about helping young people not have to experience homelessness in the first place. It's about secondary prevention, helping young people exit homelessness as quickly as possible, and then tertiary prevention, helping young people strengthen their networks of support so they can have sustainable exits from homelessness. They can live stably in the community. And for us here in Toronto, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. And at Covenant House, this is what it looks like. So our upstream prevention effort is our Youth Reconnect program. That's brand new. We just launched it last month. The secondary prevention, helping young people exit homelessness as quickly as possible. That's our shelter diversion program. And then that's a fairly new program. We started piloting that in February of this year. And then the tertiary prevention, helping young people strengthen their networks of support so their exits from homelessness is sustainable. That's our family and natural support program. And that's been operating for over 4 years now. And I'm going to spend most of my time speaking about the lessons and the learnings we've gathered from our F&S work, because we got a bit more experience there and we know a little bit more about what we're talking about, but obviously still a lot of room to grow. Could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So our F&S program, it's support for young people between the ages of 16 and 29 who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness to strengthen their connection with community and immediate, extended, and chosen family. We do that work because we understand that that will help young people exit homelessness successfully. It'll help them maintain housing stability, and it will lead to improved health and well-being. The program launched in August 2018 as a demonstration project of making the shift, which you folks probably heard a little bit about over the last couple of days. That funding and that demonstration phase wrapped up in June. I'm really pleased to say that Covenant House is committed to maintaining the program in full on an ongoing basis. Our F&S support, in a nutshell, is a counselling support. It's a counselling service. So the team of F&S workers provide individual and family therapy, along with coaching and skill building, and systems navigation support, so helping youth and their family members connect to resources in the community. Those services are inclusive of the young person and their identified family members, because we recognize that family members often need as much support, guidance, and encouragement as the young person. And if we can help the family member be in a better place, then they're better able to support the young person. So the family, sometimes the youth is the client, the family member is the client, or the family as a whole is the client. A lesson learned here is how to talk about family. A lot of youth talking about family is a difficult thing. It's emotional, it's vulnerable, it's challenging. So we really take the youth's lead in how they define family, who are the important people to them, and what family means to them. So we ask questions like, who are your people? Who do you have in your phone? Who's in your circle? Who's important to you? And it might mean caregivers, very often it does, because those relationships have often been the most impactful on us. But it might also be extended family members, grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles, whether that's biological or not. However the youth is defining who's important to them, that's the lead that we'll follow. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the challenge in doing F&S work is the understanding of the causes of youth homelessness. Because we know that the main reason young people come to shelter or experience homelessness is some kind of breakdown in their family relationship. So that's led us to an understanding that family is part of young people's past, and often a very problematic part of that past. Certainly not seen as a part of young people's present, and not part of young people's future. And so a lot of our services within the shelter system are focused on the idea of building the skills in young people to be self-sufficient. I think it's a mistake to assume that self-sufficiency has to mean complete independence and disconnection from important people in your life. The goldfish there, I identify with that goldfish, the one that's making the leap, because I think it's important to have people around you. I think it's important to have your people around you. And I think it's even more important for young people to have that sense of belonging and that sense of connection. In the context of adolescent development, we're thinking about a transitional phase in young people's lives where they're emerging into adulthood, where they're identifying who they want to be as an adult. It's a process of identity formation. So it's natural and expected that young people are seeking out community, seeking out belonging. And we know that many young people experiencing homelessness find a sense of safety, a sense of belonging within the street youth population, the homeless youth population. They also may see homelessness services as surrogate family. So their peers and the service providers may be providing a sense of care, protection that many young people might not have experienced before. However, what we've also heard from young people is that that very sense of inclusion, and this is a difficult pill to swallow and it's difficult to chew over, but what young people have identified is that that sense of inclusion within the homelessness community and our service provision community is actually a barrier to exiting homelessness. What young people have spoken about is that when they are asked to exit homelessness, they're asked to transition from an identity of homelessness, an identity of being marginalized, discriminated against, being on the edges, to one of having to integrate into what might be seen as mainstream culture or mainstream society. So what we've learned in our FNS program is that if young people during their experience of homelessness can maintain contact or are supported to maintain contact with folks who are not connected to their service provision, not connected to the experience of homelessness, that transition out of homelessness becomes much easier for them. It's much less challenging. The second quote there from the young person, this could help deal with a lot of emotional stuff. I can't do school if my mental health is not good. My mental health is not good if my relationships aren't good. I think that speaks to how we need to think about how we prioritize services. For some young people, the need to heal from disruption, from relationship disruptions, attachment disruptions, to reconcile relationships, to repair relationships. Some young people need to focus on that first before they can move on to focus on other things in their life, before we can expect them to be successful with education, employment, and living in their own apartment. Next slide, please, Adam. Thank you. Very quick snapshot of what our program participants have looked like over the last 4 years. 70% identify as BIPOC. Of those BIPOC youth, the majority self-identify as Black. So it's been really important for us to find a program approach and a counseling approach that promotes cultural safety and really meets people where they're at. Significant overrepresentation of 2S LGBTQ identified youth in the program. Of those 2S LGBTQ identified youth, a very high number identified as trans and non-binary. Again, young people experiencing homelessness that identify as queer and trans are understood to be experiencing homelessness because of rejection from family. But that doesn't mean that family is no longer important to those young people. It may not be the people they've been rejected by that they're seeking to strengthen relationship with. Family can be really broad, really diverse. Maybe a parent has been rejecting, but does that mean we have to write off the whole family as being rejecting? We're implicating an awful lot of people in that rejection if we describe the whole family as rejecting. A little bit about the ages of young people that are accessing the FNS program. 108, that gray wedge there on the circle, 22 to 24-year-olds. That's the majority of the young people accessing FNS support. It's younger than I expected when this program, it's older than I expected when I launched this program. I was expecting we'd be serving a younger age group. What we've seen is that young people are seeking to redefine their relationships with family. They're no longer in situations when they want to be in relationships of dependence with caregivers. They want to be in relationships of interdependence, that adult-to-adult relationship with someone they define as family. Next slide, please. Thank you. A little bit about why young people are seeking support from the FNS program. Very few are accessing the program saying, I want to go return to live with family. Only 7%. But I'd like you to remember that 7% because we see an awful lot more young people exiting homelessness for family homes than are approaching our program asking for that to be the outcome. What this has taught us is that when we talk about an FNS program and FNS supports, we don't need to necessarily frame it as family reunification. It doesn't need to be about family reconnection. It's really about meeting the young person and what they're seeking. And for most of the young people, what they're seeking is an improvement in a family relationship. It's not necessarily about living with that family. They just want to have a better connection there. Next slide, please. So that's 7%. Only 7% identified that they wanted to return to live with family. However, if we look at the circle in the bottom right of youth that exited homelessness, 36 went to live with family. So what we've learned is that if first we can focus on providing support to strengthen those relationships, then the opportunity to go live with an identified family member becomes a possibility. So it's always held in kind of in the back pocket, in the back of our minds. We're always leaving the door open for that possibility, but we've got to meet the youth where they're at and what they're asking for. And for many youth, they're wanting a safe space to talk about family. They're not necessarily wanting the family members involved at the very beginning. But again, once they build some trust with the worker, they start to do some work, then the opportunity to invite a family member in and do some real specific work on strengthening that relationship, that can start to happen. Next slide, please. So our shelter diversion program, moving upstream a little bit. We just launched this in February. It was a pilot program for us. We said we would pilot it for 6 months. We're past 6 months and the program's still running, so I think something good is happening there. The idea with shelter diversion is to meet youth at intake to shelter or as quickly after. We're putting a 72-hour time frame on that, to talk about what alternatives do you have to a shelter stay. Where have you stayed before? Who do you have in your life? How can we support you make that work for you? Next slide, please. Some of the early findings we're getting from our shelter diversion program. So we had 90 young people meet with our diversion case manager in these first 6 months. 18 of them were able to successfully secure a safe, stable housing alternative to a shelter stay. 71 of the youth the diversion case manager was meeting with were intaking into the shelter. 19 were young people that were being turned away. But 14 of those 19 were able to be successfully diverted. So we're finding that when young people are not able to access shelter, that's when the possibility and the creative thinking kicks in around what alternatives might be that are available. As you can see, most young people are finding safe, stable housing with friends and family. Again, the overlap with F&S, right? We need to keep F&S as an underlying way of thinking about how can we support youth access safe, stable housing. The largest provider of affordable housing in Canada, it's family. And they need to be considered as a housing option. Timeframes for successful diversions, 11 of those 18 youth were able to be diverted at that time of contact. 7 were able to be diverted within 30 days. So we're learning that sometimes diversion doesn't happen the day of. We need to have a little bit of a window to provide some supports, to reach out to those family members, those chosen supports, put some things in place before that exit from the shelter can happen. Next slide, please. And our brand new program, Youth Reconnect, this is as far upstream as we're going right now. I'm hopeful, and I'm sure that Covenant House will continue to explore and expand in our prevention efforts, but we just launched Youth Reconnect last month. Youth Reconnect is focused on helping young people stay engaged in school by helping them stabilize their living situation. We know that when young people experience homelessness, the school dropout rate goes through the roof. So the national average in Canada, I think, is 9%. For youth experiencing homelessness, it's 53%. So if we can help young people maintain housing stability, we can help them stay engaged in school. Our Youth Reconnect program is partnering with 4 specific partners, 2 of the Children's Aid Societies here in Toronto, and the 2 school boards, the TDSB and the Toronto Catholic District School Board, because those are the systems that are already connected to young people who are at risk of homelessness. As a homelessness serving organization, we're not connected with them in that early stage. So we need to partner with the folks that are, and the systems that are connected to those youth. Next slide, please. So Youth Reconnect works with the slightly younger age groups, 14 to 18-year-olds, and the focus is on helping young people stay engaged in school, either by addressing the issues at home that are producing the risk of homelessness, such as family conflict, or helping young people that can't stay at home find safe, stable housing in the community without needing to come to a shelter first. We're focusing with Youth Reconnect on meeting the needs of youth that identify as 2S LGBTQ or Black, because those are the populations that are overrepresented in our shelters in the city. I think that's it for me. Is there another slide there, Adam? All right, so it's been a privilege. Thank you very much. I look forward to some questions later.
Thank you, Justin. So next we have Emmy Kelly and Emily Rowe. Emmy Kelly is a strategic leader with 20 plus years of experience in poverty alleviation, successfully driving organizational growth both locally and internationally. As COO of Blue Door, Emmy has developed and launched Blue Door's trade-based employment social enterprise construct, focused on homelessness prevention, and has led the Blue Door team to launch 36 units of transitional supportive housing focused on creating long-term solutions and supports for families, senior men, and 2S LGBTQ plus youth. I have to do a breath. Ooh. Emmy leads areas of resource development, social enterprise, finance, marketing, communications, research, risk, and control. Over the last 5 years, she has successfully operationalized Blue Door's speedy growth to support vulnerable populations and make meaningful change, including in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. Emmy volunteers at the United Nations Institute for Training and Research Global Network at CIFAL York, as well as on the board of directors on the Daily Bread Food Bank to further support the mission of justice and poverty alleviation. Emily Rowe is an experienced leader with a strong background in organizational governance, corporate social responsibility, and social justice. Her professional career has led to Blue Door Support Services as the Senior Manager of Social Enterprise on the Construct team. With her team, she is committed to breaking down barriers to employment and provide direct connections to careers that will support homelessness prevention and housing stability. She previously worked for the Home Depot Canada Foundation, spearheading TradeWorks, a coalition bringing together trades-based employment social enterprises across Canada. In her volunteer capacity, Emily has sat as a volunteer manager for both municipal and federal campaigns and a board member for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Halton, and Hamilton. So please welcome them.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, well, we'll just start. Could I get to the next slide, please? Perfect, thank you. So I'll just start with a little overview of TradeWorks, and then I'll pass it over to my smart colleague, Emily, as well as Ria, who... This system is not working for me, and I can't make it work for me. Anyhow, so I'll just hold it. Thank you for joining us today. TradeWorks is actually made possible by a very generous investment from the Home Depot Canada Foundation. 3 years ago, we had the idea at Blue Door to launch a trades-based employment social enterprise. We were not the first in Canada to do this. We recognized there were other great organizations doing this type of work, and we set out to talk to them and learn from them and do our research and business planning to structure our own. We recognized the huge void there was in the market for laborers to enter into the trades, and our own populations that we were serving who were detached from labor market and weren't given the provisions to successfully enter a career in the trades. So essentially what we recognized is that we wanted to provide kind of a pathway into the trades, and Emily will speak to that more. And we recognize sometimes it's just the little things that stand in the way, the lack of having a network, the lack of having those dollars you need to just get to work. The lack of childcare support that you need for someone to care for your kids while you get to work. When people say it doesn't cost to be employed, it is not true. It does. It costs to get clothes, it costs to get your PPE, it costs to get on transport, it costs to have safety boots, everything costs. And so essentially this program helps to remove the barriers that are standing in the way of those that are detached from labor market. and help to provide the supports, wraparound supports that allow participants to successfully engage in careers in the trades. Part of this too was the recognition that housing is becoming so unaffordable. As a charity, we had been doing it wrong by helping people transition into jobs that often paid a minimum wage, when we know that you can't possibly afford housing if you're making $14, $15 an hour. Yet in the trades, in the trade unions, they're, participants are able to start at $22 an hour and quickly climb over the next few months, $24 and so on. So it's a much stronger path towards housing stability. And so that was kind of our intention, to bring these pieces together. Additionally, by having an employment social enterprise that was focused in the construction space, we want to continue to build our capabilities towards building affordable housing. Blue Door is an organization that focuses on housing stability and a safe place for everyone to stay. And so this work to us is about completing a full circle of care. We're helping to close the gap between, the housing affordability, but also providing careers that allow individuals to afford housing, as well as creating more affordable housing. So that's kind of a bit the background on where we were going. And so in this work, we recognized there were other great organizations around Canada doing similar, very great work in trades-based employment social enterprise. And that was when we thought it might be time for us to start looking at a more coordinated effort. And so we started forming coalition across Canada and brought this to the Home Depot Canada Foundation, who loved the vision and came on to support. So in its first year, last year, there were 10 partners in the coalition across Canada. This continues to grow. And I just want to speak to Blue Door's role in it for a minute. The Home Depot wasn't able to join us today, so I won't speak about their role. But this piece is a great example of cross-sector collaboration, because I think, in the charity space, we know we can't possibly do it without the dollars that we need to get the job done. Sometimes the leverage, political will, and other pieces as well. In this case, we also recognize there's a number. Can people still hear me? Okay. There's a number of great organizations that are doing amazing work that do not have charitable status. They might be, it could be an innovative person that has passion and will and is working hard to start up a social enterprise. In other cases, we saw small nonprofits. We saw large nonprofits without the charitable status. And what we recognize is that there are dollars available to charities, and we want to continue to push the agenda forward of homelessness prevention through trades-based employment social enterprise. So essentially, Blue Door started creating the infrastructure to support nonprofits who are doing great work and need the support of a charity to receive funding and resources for their projects. So Blue Door provides intermediary partnerships which allow nonprofits to do great work. So in the TradeWorks Coalition, we had, in the first year, we had 5 partners, and this year I believe we'll have 7. And it continues to grow. And so I'll pass it over to Emily, but part of this conversation too is just to open it up to the audience to let you know that we're really happy to invite partnerships and possibilities. Come talk with us, ask us, chat with us, because we, as well as the Home Depot Canada Foundation, want to continue to grow this reach as an effective prevention strategy for youth experiencing or more likely to experience homelessness. And I'll pass it over to Emily, who will give you a view of Construct, which is our employment social enterprise and kind of an example of what others around Canada are doing. Thank you.
I think we're going to have okay. Yeah, I might do that. have a healthy amount of anxiety about this microphone after that, but we'll see how this goes.
Just gotta hold it like that.
That was easy. Awesome, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Emily. I'm the Senior Manager of Social Enterprise on the Construct team at Blue Door. And very, very grateful to be here today. I've attended this conference a few times in the past, and to be able to speak with you all today is definitely a highlight of my career. So thanks for having me, and thanks for coming today to listen to our talk. So if we can just go to the next slide. I don't know if this is working, but so I'm going to chat a little bit about Construct, and then I have Ria here who can definitely speak to it a lot better than I can. She was a graduate of the Construct program and is well on her way with her career at LIUNA 506. So very excited to hear about her experience in the program and all of her successes since graduating. But to get started, Construct really, like Emmy said, kind of was born out of failure. And what we did at that time is we kind of looked at the landscape to see what was going on, and we found that there was a major shortage that was about to come up in the trades industry. Lots of laborers needed because there were so many that were going to be retiring. And then we took a look at current employment programs and saw that people were being pipelined into careers that were paying a minimum wage rather than a living wage. So we kind of took those two worlds, combined them together, knew that if we could provide a program that could help people successfully move into meaningful careers in the trades, they have a better chance of being able to either maintain or attain housing as a result of the wages and the job security that these kinds of employment opportunities provide. So if we can go to the next slide. So Construct kind of has two different streams of it. When we first launched in 2020, we were operating predominantly in York Region, which for those of you not from here, it's north. It's that way. My geography is not great. I've done this presentation before, and I learned that I should probably understand directions a little bit better, but I don't. So when we started, we launched in York Region. Since then, we've expanded to Durham Region, which I think is that way, and Peel Region, which is that way. And we run two different programs, just given the partners that we're working with to deliver this training. So for those that are coming from York and Durham Region, they go through our LIUNA program. So Construct runs an 8-week job readiness program. The first week that you're with us, you are doing job readiness training. You're learning about communication, how to show up to work on time, how to be respectful. They're going over health and safety policies. I will give a shout out to Megan, who I see sitting back there, who's our training coordinator and actually delivers this training to our participants. After that week, they attend LIUNA for 2 weeks in-person training, and there they're learning things like construction math. They're getting hands-on training with various power tools, building things like Muskoka chairs or picnic tables. And they're also receiving 3 certifications. So they get their working at heights, their their health and safety, and their WMIS. And then when they graduate from those 2 weeks at LIUNA, they rejoin our amazing Megan for some more of that job readiness training. And I'll get into a little bit more details of the training that's being delivered in the next couple of slides. But really, we try to take a holistic approach. So we're covering topics like mental health, employability, we're doing interview prep and resume writing, and we're doing a lot of goal setting with folks to make sure that they're tracking and progressing really well towards meaningful employment. And I'll go to the next slide, talk a little bit about the Humber program before getting into some of our wraparound supports. Our Humber program is for those coming from Peel Region. It runs exactly the same in terms of the job readiness training that they receive, but rather than going to LIUNA for 2 weeks, they attend Humber College 2 days a week for the entire 8 weeks that they're with us. And Humber College, through their trade school, is offering very specific trades training in a lot of trades that are related to carpentry. So they're doing drywalling, flooring, tiling, and millwork. We're really excited. We're looking to expand that partnership with Humber to cover a few more trades in the next year and support some more individuals. But very similar, same certifications that they're receiving, same virtual training that they're receiving as well with our team. Before I go to the next slide, I just want to chat a little bit about the wraparound supports. And I think the wraparound supports are really what set us aside from your traditional employment program and frame us a little bit more towards prevention. So we are a paid program. Folks are getting paid $15.50 an hour to be in our program because we recognize that we can't ask people to put their lives on hold for 8 weeks and not provide them with any kind of wage to attend our program. In addition to that, food and transportation is covered throughout our program. So when they are going in person to Humber or LIUNA, they're provided either a Presto Pass if they take transit or a gas gift card if they're driving. as well as food support, so they can go to, any of the PC stores or Walmart, and they can actually, purchase their meals. We do some meal prep and healthy eating in our program, so kind of teaching them about, preparing your meals for work. So we provide those supports. We have health and wellness supports, which predominantly include psychotherapy. So anybody that is looking to access psychotherapy throughout our program, we have a really great partnership with a group called Inspire Therapy. You can go online, fill out an assessment, they match you with a psychotherapist, and anonymously we get invoiced, so we're able to cover those costs for folks. In addition, we have emergency assistance. So if people are falling behind on rent or their bills, or they're running into hard times, maybe they're supporting kids and they need more support with food or winter clothes, whatever that may be, we're able to step in and help cover them off for that as well too, both while they're in our program and in those kind of 8 weeks after they graduate our program too, recognizing that it takes a little bit of time to go through the interview process and kind of land that well-paying career. And then the last couple of things here, we provide a $250 graduation bonus to everybody in our program. We have a connection with the continuing education centers in the different regions that we're operating in. So there is a soft requirement that you have your grade 10 education to be in the Construct program. If you are interested in getting your GED, we'll connect you with the continuing education center. They do their PLAR assessment. You can actually earn credits just by being in the Construct program, as well as various life experiences. For folks that don't have their grade 10, we still welcome them into our program. We just automatically connect them with the continuing education centers because a lot of the unions or private contractors do have that grade 10 requirement, so we want to make sure that they're connected and well on their way to achieve that. Okay, and we can go to the next slide. So this is that job readiness training that we are teaching, that Megan is teaching. The topics that we cover, mental health, so we're talking about health and wellness, mindfulness, we're talking about substance abuse and creating healthy habits for folks. We do the employment skills, so that's your typical resume writing, cover letters. We do mock interviews with folks where we're able to provide that feedback and get them ready to actually go out and do real world interviews. We do an intro to trades. During this time, we've been able to actually book a couple different field trips. So they're going to Local 27, which is a carpenters union here in Toronto. They're going to the electrical union in Oshawa. We really try to connect folks with those potential employers during these units. We do planning for the future. So we have an amazing client services coordinator, Emma, who is also here. And she meets with our participants one-on-one throughout the program to really make sure that they're tracking well towards their goals. She starts off really early with talking about where do you see yourself at the end of this program and how can we help you get there. And a lot of that planning for the future work comes through in those one-on-ones. Digital literacy, construction math, we have a great partnership with a group called Skill Plan. They worked with all of the unions across each province to develop a curriculum to get people ready to write their entrance exam. So folks in our program can get an account on there. They're able to go on, take an assessment, and then see where maybe some of their gaps in learning are and take courses that are geared towards supporting them be successful when they do go to write that entrance exam. And then lastly, another certification that folks receive is their soft skills certification. So in this unit, they're talking about teamwork and communication and personal management and personal branding as well. And they receive a certification that they can add to their resume once they complete that as well. Next slide, please. This year, we also launched a learning portal. So for everybody in our program, they get set up with an account. They're able to access this even after they've completed the training, and this holds all of the modules that they're learning while they're with us. So things like preparing for an interview, maybe they've been out of the program for 2-3 weeks, they're able to go back on here and they're able to take that course just to get a bit of a refresher, get them ready and grounded before they go out to do their interview. The other great piece about this, you'll see there's a job postings tab. So any unions that are starting their apprenticeships or any private contractors that are hiring, we're able to post on there and our participants are able to go on and fill out the applications directly through our website. Next slide, please. I will now pass it over to Ria. As I mentioned, Ria is a graduate of the Construct program, has seen a lot of amazing success, which I'm excited for her to come and share with you here today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ria McCollin, and as Emily said, I am a recent graduate of the Construct program. I am currently a member of LiUNA Local 506, and I am working as a mason tendant. So as Emily said, like, I'm able to be here because of them, honestly. The very first week we get into the program, it's very individualized. So we get in, and Megan, our beautiful instructor, she's so kind, so patient with everybody. She sits us down, and it's on Zoom, so we're already sitting, but she talks to us, and she asked us, okay, like, where do you see yourself? Where do you want to go? And most participants actually don't know where they want to go, but there are so many different sectors, there's so many different trades that you can get into. So having to have that conversation, okay, you can go into carpentry, you can go into concrete casting, there's so many different things. Like, in the beginning, I wanted to go into carpentry, and as we got through the program, I actually ended up at LiUNA for the 2-week training, and I was doing some carpentry there, and I was like, this is nice, but I love this facility, and I love to try something else. And it does give you the opportunity to actually try something else, because it is an 8-week program, so you still have that pay and the stability to be able to go out and find something that is more secure for you and more geared to what you would actually like to do. So I got into LiUNA, and right off the bat, they said that I would have to do another 8 weeks of training at their facility, which is kind of difficult for someone who's actually struggling to get stable housing, stable funding, a better career, because you're not being paid for that 8 weeks. So that's another cost that you have to look into. While you're coming out of Construct, you don't do both, but they do give you the opportunity to go do your entrance exam, take a day off of their work to go in, and they actually help pay for gas supports, any kind of funding that you need to get in there. And they also give you work boots. Work boots are very expensive. They're over, like, most people know they cost like $100, and for some people who can't afford that at the moment, that's another cost that you can't actually get into. And then once you go through that 8 weeks, then having to go to the program wherever your training facility is another cost that you have to add on to also, like, supporting yourself. I have a daughter, so paying for her supports and stuff that she needs as well, and then also having to pay for myself, it's very difficult. But at this point, I'm already out of the program, but they're still helping me. They're still helping me go through and keep that training facility being able to go in. And another thing that pops up when you're going into a union specifically is you have to pay your entrance fee. You have to, while you're in there for the 8 weeks, most people aren't working. They're taking that 8 weeks to stay at the facility. It's 8:30 to 3:30. That's basically a job. So, but you're not getting paid to do it. They also offer the help to actually pay your entrance fee and the first 3 months of your union dues, which is amazing. So there you have it. Like, you're in a new career, in a better job, and you're actually able to pay for everything that you need to pay for. You don't have to worry about those initial fees that are very steep, unfortunately, for most people in a situation where you can't even pay your rent. How are you supposed to pay $600 to actually get into a union where you have stability to actually pay your rent? And they actually help with that, and it's honestly amazing. It's very, very great. And another thing that they have as well to show how individualized it is, they have one-on-one sessions with another one of their coordinators, Emma. She is also very nice. And for most people, you're in a group setting and you're talking to other people and everybody has their own story to share, but not everybody is comfortable. I'm 23 and I still have a difficult time sharing my experiences with other people, and having that one-on-one session to be able to say, hey, like, I'm actually struggling in this section. Like, yeah, I'm happy, smiley, like, in class with everyone else, but I have the opportunity to actually sit down and say, like, hey, like, I actually can't get to work today because of this. Like, being able to have that one-on-one and actually talk to somebody and say, hey, like, I need supports in I need supports in this section of my life, and they offer those supports to you as well. And having to have that conversation is honestly amazing. And you have 2 of those one-on-ones. You have one at the beginning to see where you are, kind of what you need, where you want to go, and then you have one closer to the end, like, how is it going? Like, do you like what's happening right now? Like, do you see yourself going into a great career? Like, do you see yourself coming through something different? Like, do you want to change careers? For me, I was going into carpentry, and then I ended up at LiUNA, and I had the time and the opportunity to actually make that switch to a better career with Blue Door. So I'm very, very grateful for them. Anytime they ask if I want to come do something, I'm like, yes, I will definitely give back, because you guys are honestly amazing. Like, to give me that opportunity is a blessing to me. Like it's honestly amazing. They're so kind. Thank you.
Okay, you and I.
career are you in now?
Sorry?
What career are you in now?
Mason tending. I'm in mason tending, sorry. So mason tending, it's basically you tend to the masons. So I would be the person to mix the concrete. I got my certification in EWP, which is elevated work platforms. I'm able to drive those large blue machines that kind of look like a L around. Like I can drive forklifts. I know how to mix concrete. I know the proper techniques. I know the math. They actually teach the trades math ahead of time. So when you're going into the union, you kind of have that prep and you're a little bit ahead. So it's easier for you to get your, they call them tickets, to get your trades math. So it puts you in a better position to have options to go into a different sector, because Local 506 is industrial. So you can choose to go into precast erection, you can go into concrete finishing, you can go into demolition, you can go into hazmat. There's so many different options just at LIUNA. So you have kind of like a head start coming from Blue Door, if that makes sense. And mason tending is basically the person who does all of the hard work while the mason puts the bricks on the thing. Yes.
So I know that we're pretty much out of time. Or... Yeah, okay. I'm just going to go to I'll skip through a couple of things because I think we've talked mostly about that. Yeah, so we can go through there. These are some of the successes that we've seen through launch. We're tracking towards having over 200 participants go through our program by the end of this year, and looking to add on even more cohorts in 2023, which we're very excited about. We can go to the next slide. These are just, some more really great quotes from some amazing graduates that we've had, but I think Maria kind of sums it up in her story. And then this is just a little bit about kind of what's next for us, and I'll just speak very, very quickly about this. But we are looking to do that resource and knowledge sharing with other organizations. We didn't get to where we are without the support of different partners from across Canada. Some of the work that we are in the early stages of exploring is supporting organizations that are looking to launch similar programs to Construct, and seeing how we can package up basically what we've done, how we've gotten to where we're at, and support other organizations in that work. So as Emmy said before, if anybody is interested, we would love to have more conversations with you about the work that you're doing in your organization, and how we can best support leveraging this model. And I believe that is it from us. Thank you so much.
Okay, sweet. So one of our final presentations will be Dr. Cynthia Perdue, is a community-based researcher focusing on youth houselessness and structural barriers to housing. She has established a strong partnership with houseless serving agencies in Edmonton using community-based participatory research methods. She works closely with houseless youth in Edmonton, did I just read that twice? Oh, I'm so sorry. Sharing their stories of difficulty and success. Cynthia is interested in using her research to work as an ally and advocate for populations that have been historically silenced. Ms. Carola Cunningham has over 40 years of experience in education, justice, community health and wellness, and addictions recovery. She has designed, developed, and delivered programs tailored to the needs of Indigenous communities. She possesses firsthand knowledge of complexities and diversities of Indigenous peoples in Canada. Carola is consistent in her use of Indigenous methods and structural protocol throughout her career. Carola has demonstrated strong dedication in bridging cultural differences and creating understanding in sectors she works in and with. She is an outstanding visionary who supports the changing needs of people and has been repeatedly recognized by communities and peers as an individual with diverse skill sets and exceptional abilities. So please, let's welcome them to the stage.
Tansei Toya. So wow. I just want to. Okay, it does. So we already did that. It's not going back though. I just wanted to test it to see if it was working. So I'll let Carola introduce herself, and then I'll introduce myself quickly.
I did introduce myself earlier in my from my language, but I'll introduce myself in English. My name's Carola Cunningham, and I'm a Métis woman from St. Albert, Alberta. And I've been working for a long time with Indigenous people at high-risk lifestyles. And I'm the CEO, or I'm the retiring CEO. I got to get used to saying that. From Niganan Housing Ventures. So I began that organization 8 years ago with one housing initiative called Ambrose Place. We took the hardest to house, so level 4 housing needs, complex medical, mental, physical, emotionally, spiritually, at a major deficit. And we've actually graduated some people into marketed housing from there. From there, we grew into transitional bridge housing. It's called Pimatsuan Life. And there we do bridge housing from our perspective, from a very Indigenous way of doing and being. And we are now refurbishing the Sands Hotel into a PSH with bridge housing on the side and justice beds. We also run, and you're going to hear about it today, Omamu Wangugamik, all our relations lodge. It's a multi-generational complex, level 2. We're also in the build with Homeward Trust with MacArthur in Edmonton. That'll be another 43-unit build, and we're opening in a couple months, I think. Yeah, and we have 6 PDD homes.
And my name's Cynthia Pudu, and I'm an assistant professor at MacEwan University. And I am privileged and blessed to be working with Carola on a research project where really she and her wonderful organization do all the work, and we're along for the ride documenting the great work that they're doing at Omamu Wangugamik, which we will be talking about. So I also, oh, are you not gonna go work for me? Oh, there we go. So I want to thank Aaron and Blake for the prayer and the smudge, and just also want to acknowledge the land that we come from in Treaty 6 territory. So just a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. We have a short story of one of the residents of Omamu Wangugamik, a video of her talking about her story. Then we'll talk about the project itself, why decolonized approach to housing is important, the importance of culture and ceremony, success stories that we've seen, and hopefully we'll get to talking about the challenges of COVID, although maybe no one wants to hear about that anymore because we all had that. So, thank you.
My name's Abby, and I'm 23, and I was homeless on the streets before I got into supportive housing. The whole reason that I wanted to live in permanent supportive housing was to be able to provide a life for my kids and to be able to do it successfully. When I walk through the doors, I feel happy to be home. I feel safe and supported. Living here is different from living other places because it's like a community, and it's a healthy community. You don't feel alone. You're always connected to your cultural aspect. If you need something, you can reach out, and there's always someone here. Living here is different than my other housing experiences because there's support there to not fall back into addictive patterns. And it's structured here. Since living here, I feel like I have a place to belong. Like, I don't know, when you walk into the building, there's always someone down there, and someone's always smiling or waving or asking you what's up or how your day was. People are supporting each other in the sense that if someone doesn't have something, then someone else has it for them. the biggest thing I've seen people achieve is just having the housing, like people who otherwise wouldn't have housing at all. And then taking care of like their medical needs and their physical health and their mental health, and creating healthy friendships, learning what a healthy friendship is. I've seen multiple people in the building do those things since living here and have hope for the future. Before living here, I viewed the future as kind of hopeless, a struggle to get nowhere. Since living here, I now see the future as something to look forward to. My name's Ab.
Oh, that went back. Can I just get to the next slide? Thank you. So thank you, Abby, for sharing her story. The way things work when I work with Corolla is I just kind of ask questions, and then she knows all the answers, so she'll be talking more about anything. The Omamu Wangogamik project and the work that Negan on Housing Ventures do, I just wanted to point, because we saw in the wonderful presentation on Covenant the demographics of the youth that you work with, and in Edmonton it's a much different story. We're the second largest urban Indigenous. We have the second largest urban Indigenous population in Canada, and when we look at the statistics, around 6% of the population are Indigenous, and it's around 65% of the unhoused population are Indigenous. So we have a very high overrepresentation of Indigenous peoples, Indigenous youth in Edmonton that are unhoused. And so the work that Ambrose does is really tailored to working with those people, the young people and everyone. So as Corolla mentioned, it's a multi-generational housing unit. There are single moms like Avi. There are elders, and again, Corolla will tell you a lot more, but the cookums and mushums, the grandmothers and grandfathers are there. And some youth that are have transitioned out of care, and other youth are there as well. So we'll talk about the specific people, or not the actual people, but the groups of people that are living there. But I wanted Corolla to talk a little bit about, there we go, why a decolonized approach to housing is important, and why they are doing this work.
Well, I think it goes back 48 years ago when I first started in human service industry, and I looked at the way I was brought up, and I looked at the way the world was working and all those systemic structures, and I went, this is all backwards. This is so backwards for our people. It's right upside down. And I knew that the only way to really bring our people back to who they were, to reclaim their identity, to reclaim pride in who they are, was to go back to who we were intentionally to be. And so when I look at decolonizing, it means to reclaim the way you were. And so that's what we do at Omamu Wangogamik. That's what we do at all our builds, is that we are a land-based people. We come from the land. I understand that, and so do our people. And the more we can be on the land and connected with the land, the more we will begin to thrive and take on our own responsibility for our own lives. We have been paternalized, maternalized, and colonized, and we need to get out of that because it has not worked. If we're 3% of the population, 97% of the children in care are Indigenous, there's something seriously wrong. And I see foster homes as the new residential school. And we're going to be here, in another 20 years, figuring out how to fix all those kids that have gone through that foster care system. So I said, we have to take this back. We have to do it the way we understand we are. And we need to go back to the land. We need to get into our ceremonies. We need to reclaim our language. We need to do it the way we were instructed. We are the original people of Turtle Island. We're not a minority. Yes. So that's what's important.
Thank you. So a little bit about who's housed at Omamu Wangogamik. And again, they do all the work. I just do the PowerPoints and help share their story. So
Yeah, well, our intent to house, we wanted to really take families at risk of children being apprehended. We wanted to take kids directly out of care because we heard from our other presenters that as soon as they hit the street, if you don't get them out of it, the projection is to be at places like Ambrose when they're 50. And so how can we change that? And you know, for us as Indigenous people, as an Indigenous organization, we always have to prove to government that we know what we're doing. And so I said, okay, we're gonna take 6 youth and we're gonna show them that we can do things different. And we're gonna take women that are ready to have babies, that are homeless, that their kids have been red flagged to be apprehended. And so that's what we did. And so we are just entering our 2nd year, and we have had 14 babies born at Omamu, Wangugamik, 14 babies that did not go into care. 14 babies being raised by their natural parent. 14 babies learning their language. 14 babies going on the land with their parents. Like that's, if you broke that down economically, it's just a no-brainer to work with families and work in a way that hits them here. They understand who they are and they start to gain respect. This young lad, that's Jay, and he's one of the youth, and when he came, he was in and out of addictions. And when and you see behind him is a cookum, that's Ruth. You know, we matched up the youth to the cookums and said, you're responsible for that cookum or you're gonna help that mushum. And they connect. And so when they're working with the kids, those young men will go and say, Cookum, do you need to go get groceries? We'll go get groceries with you. And so the community has just grown there. These are our living elders, the women. We also have a mushum, Wayne, and he's getting ready to go on a harvest of a moose. And so the young men are going to go on the land, learn how to track that moose, learn how to butcher it and bring it home. And then us women are going to work with that moose and get that hide ready and get the food put away for the winter. And those are things that are very prideful. When we have these elders here, even social services is starting to say, wow, you guys are really doing something different, because out of the young women that are living with us that have had babies, some of them had children in care. And because they've proven that they've done so well with their new babies, their children are being returned. And so we have... Yeah, so I look at one woman, and she came to us with one child, and she had 4 in care. She's got 3 back now, and we have to move her into a larger house so that all of her children can come back. And so we can bring our children home. We can learn to live in this Western colonized world the way we understand. And I believe that these children that are being born at Omamu Wangugamik, when they start to create their own family, their children are probably decreased by 85% of ever going into care, because they've been raised by their natural parents, because they understand who they are as Nihiwak. And Nihiwak means, it's a name for Cree people, 4-layered people. I take care of my physical, my emotional, my mental, my spiritual. When I take care of those 4 layers, the rest of the world's gonna take care of me. And that's what our concept is. Yeah, so Cynthia's moving me along as usual.
Yep.
I want to talk about when we took the young men. Because we were in COVID, we had really short snapshots of time where we could actually go to ceremony and be on the land. And so at my fasting lodge every year, we're on the land for 6 days in total. and Jay was one of the young men that decided to fast, first time he ever fasted. And during that time, the young youth learned how to be oskapiosak, and that's what the program's called. It means helpers. And when you're moving from 12 years old into that young man place, you become an oskapios in your community. And so in ceremony, you are responsible to keep that fire going, to keep the people fed, to help with the oswagan, fill the pipes, do all those things that are necessary. And I was watching this young lad learning how to make fire. And so in our community, we have natural aunties and uncles that are living with us. And then we have a natural auntie with us. I brought her with us, Kathy. And they naturally take on that responsibility of helping wherever they can. We really are a wraparound community. And I saw one of the uncles, I saw him watching that young boy try to make fire. I said, go show him how to make it. Okay, so he went and he whittled that wood so it's just like light fluff. Put it there, then he showed him how to make the smaller sticks. Then he showed him how to make the bigger sticks. Then pretty soon he's got the logs on and he's got this huge fire in this teaching lodge. And he was so proud of himself. It sounds so simple, but it's so important, especially if you come from our community and understand what fire does in our community. And so when he learned to do that, the next day he was on those fires and he had them roaring every day for the next 6 days. And the pride he had was undescribable. So I knew just by witnessing that small act of an uncle taking time to show that young man how to make a proper fire, rekindled his desire to be somebody and not go back to using drugs, to do something different. So to me, being in ceremony, being on the land harvesting, medicines, going to our Sundance Lodge and our Chicken Lodge, we sponsored both of those. And it was amazing because from all of our housing initiatives, they came and they filled our last Chicken Lodge that the regular public had a hard time getting into. That's how many of our clients wanted to be on the land, and that's phenomenal. That means they have an inherent desire to be who they are and to be connected to the land. And it is what will change our world. We have something to share with the rest of our brothers and sisters. And it is by reconnecting and being kind, being honest and sharing that, it creates incredible strength in our community.
And again, it's Corolla. Can I get to the next slide? So Corolla talked a little bit about the success stories, but if you wanted, as researchers, a couple of things that we've seen, and Corolla's talked about, there have been, it didn't work for some residents, right? Some residents, it wasn't the place for them, and I know that Niganan is working with those residents to find different places for them. It was one of the comments that was made to me was, not everybody likes the nosy neighbor, but the nosy neighbor is also helping a lot of people, like Avi and others, or nosy Kukum, or whatever it is, right? So it's creating that community. That's something that I'm hearing when I'm talking to them, when we're interviewing them, is that community and the friendships that are being grown. And so the things that I'm seeing as a researcher is there's a lot of, some people it didn't work for, but what was really interesting was the stories of these women that are getting their kids back. So that's kind of where we're sort of pivoting to start to investigate what is it about this space that for some youth what didn't work, and so where can those youth go? That's really important. But what is it about this space that is allowing children to stay with their parents? What is it about this space that is getting these women to get their children back, which, as everybody knows, is very, very difficult to do once they're in care? So those are things that we're starting to investigate from a research perspective. I'm pretty sure Corolla knows the answer, but we're hoping to just document that so that we can share that information with other communities. And again, because government is always like, well, show us the proof, that's what we're trying to do as researchers. And is there anything else you want to add about the success stories?
Well, I think part of the reason we had difficulty with some of the youth is because it wasn't manifesting the way I envisioned it to. I wanted to get them directly from care. And it's really hard to get a big, cumbersome structure like children's services to get on board. And they'd rather let the kids slip through the cracks and end up on the street, and then maybe you can work with them. And so we're still trying to work the bugs out. And so because of COVID and because of our not a strong connection with children's services at that time, we took kids that had already been well entrenched on the street life, and we brought them into a family setting, and it was like overwhelming for them. It was too much for them, and they just continued with their drug use, and it continued to not interface well with the rest of what was going on. We believe in harm reduction, and we believe in managed alcohol and managed cannabis, and we believe that it is a continuum of treatment. And we believe that we don't want to just become a place where, oh, it's 3 o'clock, you need your beer. That's not how we operate. Your beer's in the fridge and your cannabis is away, and we don't give it to you unless you come and ask for it. And that gives them an opportunity to make decisions about how they see the world and how they want to change their life. And so when I look at people at Ambrose Place and I look at people over at Omamu, I know that that continuum of moving people up and out of homelessness and addictions can happen. We just have to be patient, and we just have to be there when they fall, and we just have to be really good baseball players. And even though they've had 3 strikes and you're out, tomorrow I'll play another baseball game with you. You have to keep giving people that opportunity to show their best life.
I think we can just end it there because we're out of time.
Okay, as usual.
Okay, I'm sure I'm not alone in like hating to have to cut things short. We can take questions now. All of the speakers are here in the front. If you would like to ask a question and you're towards the back, this mic does not have the range to get to you. You may have to either shout your question and then I'll repeat it for the people online to hear it, or please come up. I would love to have a buddy. Any questions in person first, and then I'll go to the chat. Oh, there's 2. I saw your hand first, the person behind. So please come along.
So I had 2 questions. The first was for the Covenant House. So with regards to the youth homelessness we're seeing, a lot of it that we're seeing is families. There's like codependency happening there, whether it's because parents are not in a good place and children are learning behaviors. How has that come up as a factor, and if so, how are you dealing with that with your organization? And then the second one was for Omamu. I know you had mentioned last year at this program that you only had 2-bedroom units, and you were hoping for a new build that would include up to like 5 bedrooms. Is that also happening with your new build, just to make space for larger families?
So I've already lied to people. I won't be able to repeat that question because it was so good, but I'll let Justin answer into the mic. So please encapsulate your...
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by codependency?
So we have individuals that are at home and family having like addiction issues, and youth trying to leave that but still being brought back into families' addictions and the codependency that's happening there. So while the youth are looking to reconcile with family, it's not necessarily a safe space for them to return to. And how do you end that codependency? Because as they move forward, they're always being anchored back down because parents aren't with them.
I get it. Yeah, it's tricky. I'm not sure I would frame it as codependency. I would frame it as young people being pulled back to the people that are important to them. In terms of how you support that, some support around figuring out what your boundaries are, what your plans are when things aren't going well when you're in that family home. What are your options? How do you end a conversation? How do you exit a situation in a safe way? Like I said, with our FNS program, the family members are clients too. So we need to understand where they're coming from, what's underlying their situation that's maybe leading them to use substances. How can we support them so that then that's taking some of the load off the young person? Often what we find with some of the youth we've served is there have been some significant attachment disruptions. And whenever there's an attachment disruption, that gets internalized. Like, I'm a bad kid, I'm unlovable. And a lot of our work, a lot of the clinical work that the FNS workers do is about helping young people and their families broaden the context of that disruption. So it's not that I'm an unlovable person or I'm a bad parent. I'm living within a structure and systems that are oppressive and discriminatory, and we've all deserved better. So it's not about me. Yes, I deserve better, but it's not my fault. The situation that I live within does not define who I am. So yeah, so in connecting that to your question, meeting with the whole family and where they're at and helping them make sense of their situation and define for themselves what's going to work for them and what they need.
So that was a two-part question. So I'm going to pass it over to Cynthia, and then I will get to more. Oh, this mic does not go that far.
Is that the PDD question?
Good, you had a second part, right?
Yeah, so last year, when you folks have been speaking at Omamu, you had mentioned that you had 2-bedroom units, but you were hoping with the new build to make space for larger families. So wasn't sure if that was part of your new build that you're working on.
No, MacArthur is a level 3-2, so more individual studio builds and 1-bedrooms, but future plans are absolutely to build larger units for 5 children. Yeah.
This person I saw before, yeah.
My question is for Justin from Covenant House. You mentioned 19 youth that you serve being turned away from shelter. Do you know, like, the specifics of why those youth were being turned away? And then I'm also kind of wondering, in your diversion and youth reconnect program, is it mandatory for the youth to involve their families, or do you give them, like, options in that?
So the turnaways, they were being turned away because the shelter was full. The shelter was at capacity. Many more youth, in the short time we've been piloting diversion, many more youth being turned away than are getting connected to our diversion worker. And that's a challenge we're trying to figure out. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
If it's mandatory for the youth to involve their families, or like what the level of involvement with families.
No, it's not. It's completely voluntary. Access to the program is voluntary. It's driven by the youth, and who the youth choose to involve and how they define those family members is driven by the youth.
Yes.
My question is for Justin of Covenant House. I wanted to find out about the shelter diversion program. What types of supports do you provide for the families? Is there financial incentive or some financial support that comes along with that?
Yeah, that's a great. It's a good question. We're still figuring it out, to be honest. We're only 6 months in with diversion. we've made, our diversion workers made a number of referrals to the FNS workers. So for some of that counseling support to strengthen the relationship. They've made referrals to food banks, to housing workers, accessing rent subsidies. And then we have built into our budget quite a bit of flexibility. So for example, we were able to give a youth a direct electronic cash transfer so that they could make first and last as they moved into their own apartment. In that situation, it was the youth had just landed a job and got a paycheck, and so that screwed up their opportunity to get first and last through welfare. They were going to lose that apartment if we didn't step in and help, so we were able to cushion that in a very short-term way. Yeah, we're figuring it out is the short answer. We don't know exactly what's needed in terms of supporting successful diversions. Right now, I would say flexibility is the answer.
This person in the back, and I also have to apologize ahead of time. If I'm missing you and you've waved already, I'm so sorry. Just like actually do this at that point if I've missed you several times. So this person, and then this person, and then this person, and then I'll get to you as well. I'm sorry.
So all three were great presentations. What a great program you have. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about like what makes you a social enterprise to generate revenue for your organization.
Yeah, I can take this one on quickly. So yeah, we do run the 8-week training program, but alongside that, we also have like a fully operational construction company that we're operating as a social enterprise. So we have 6 staff in our construction team. Between the 6 of them, we got over 100 years of experience. So some really great experts on the team there. It's a great opportunity for our trainees to also be able to go on to job sites in the community and learn the various trades that go into like a basement renovation, a bathroom, or a kitchen. So yeah, you can hire Construct to come and do any of your renovation needs to your organization, to your home. We have some property management agreements as well too. So we do go out into the community and do kind of like property maintenance checks and small repairs here and there as well too. And obviously, you know, as a social enterprise run by Blue Door, have a great relationship there, helping them with some of their emergency shelters and transitional housing as well too. So yes. Yeah.
I would just add to that too, for any organizations that are looking to start up something like this, that don't do it with the idea that the construction business will bring in revenue for the charity. It is an on top of, but we have to recognize that there's a huge social element and wraparound supports that we will continue to rely on, supports of the government foundations and others to fund those services. And then, you know, the revenue that we make from the construction we do does like cover costs and will help us to build towards affordable housing, but that in its own would not necessarily sustain all the work that we want to do in terms of providing the supports that are needed.
My question's for the last group. First, I could have listened to you guys all day. My question, I work for Anishinaabe Nation, which represents 49 First Nations in Northern Ontario. Any success with on-reserve housing ventures or moving this model to on-reserve as well as in urban centers?
We haven't yet, but I have a lot of chiefs coming every day for tours and trying to figure out how they can work with us. I think what's happened is we've been able to offer them units for their transient people that have come and settled in the city that don't have housing. So we're working with them that way right now. We haven't actually gone on reserve yet. We're hoping actually to make Pimatsuan urban reserve. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, please.
My question is for Blue Door. Do you know if there's right now some discussion of possibility to have that kind of program in the province of Quebec? Because I find it very interesting because it's a 8-week program
Yes, so there is interest, and we have actually started the conversations in Montreal. So we started with speaking with the old. And to kind of establish where there social enterprises in their area that are doing great work, that we can start to work with them to build out some of these pieces. So we have begun an intermediary partnership with a partner there on the ground, MDO, and we're working to continue to build out those prevention strategies and see how we can. I mean, there's so much that's not said in the presentation too around what we want to build in terms of diversity and equity in entering into the trades, and so that's a big and important piece of it too, and some of the work that that group is doing on the ground. So yeah, of course, like, you're welcome to connect with us as well, but yes, we are moving into that area too.
Okay, so I hope they are talking to us because they're with you. For sure. It's really interesting. Thank you.
Oh. Okay, the person standing at the back.
I'll just repeat great, just really wonderful presentations. I have one comment and one question. So with Justin's presentation, there was a quote talking about the fact that it's hard for a young person to ask, can I stay somewhere? And I'm from Minnesota, close-knit, and we've done research and interviews with youth in those situations. And so the take-home that I just want to say is that for people who are working with youth is, they don't ask. What we see is that there's an intermediary. So they will often ask their peer, right, who, it's often, let's say, for example, their friend's family, right? So their friend will be the person who asks. Or the adult will see, oh, this young person is struggling, and will reach out. So I think removing the expectation that the youth is going to go and ask, because that's a really big ask, but helping the youth, find an intermediary, or have someone go with them, or get some support around that. So I just wanted to build on that observation. And then for the Native group, again in Minnesota, this question about being able to have intergenerational housing. So I was really interested, and I think in the U.S. a lot of the building codes and how you can get funding to do this ends up in sort of age segregated. So the youth are just with you. So when you say it's intergenerational, I wasn't entirely clear. Are the aunties actually living in the building? Yes. Okay. Everybody lives there. Everybody lives there. That is beautiful. Thank you. I mean, young people really do need intergenerational support, and so I'm thrilled that you've been able to find a way to make that happen. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, so we are at 11:30, so I do want to let people know in case you have to go. I will ask one online question so I can keep my promise that I said I would actually do that. So this question is from Marsha for Justin. Are you seeing more youth that are undiagnosed neurodiverse? This is a trend I'm seeing in BC. And do you have a process to streamline diagnose for youth and support families with these strategies?
So the first part of the question, are we seeing more youth with neurodivergence? Yes. Some diagnosed, some undiagnosed, probably more undiagnosed or unreported. Strategies for supporting families. I think a lot of families struggle with grief and loss of perhaps what they hoped was going to be the ideal child. So recognizing and accepting your child for who they are it's emotional work and can take some and needs support. There's stigma around having a child with a disability. There are logistical, practical impacts. We know from research that families with children with disabilities are more likely to be living in poverty, more likely to be struggling to work full time because they have extended caregiving responsibilities. So there's a lot of practical interventions and supports we can provide, connecting people to resources. alongside that, so the more counseling support, the emotional support.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. This will conclude our session. Please give a round of applause to all the presenters.